Tell me when you're on.
Okay, we're one.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of 2024 of the Irvington Planning Board, January 3rd, 2024. Happy New Year to everyone. And I hope we have a healthy and happy year to all of Irvington and everybody else. The minutes, Sarah, we're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, that's the minutes of December 6th, 2023. We have a motion, I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 6th, 2023.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's note that Mike Bufuco and Mike Smith are not going to be with us tonight. They had family business to attend to. So we still have a quorum with the three of us. I'll introduce everybody. That's Sarah Palermo is the gatekeeper for the Zoom. Ed Marin is the building inspector. Marianne Stessage is the village attorney. Doug Hahn is going to join us by Zoom. He has a cold and he doesn't want to spread it for the new year.
You done?
And then we have Lori Davidowitz, as a board member, Dan McGillicuddy, and I'm Caesar Manfredi, the chairman. The lineup for tonight is number one will be 205 South Broadway. Number two will be 37 Maple Street. Number three will be 10 Half Moon Lane. Number four will be 52 Field Terrace. Number five will be 4 Oak Street. Number six will be 88 Fargo Lane. Number seven, 202 West Clinton Avenue will not be heard tonight. There's some technical difficulties with the application and they'll be held over for the next meeting if they solve their technical problems. Number 8 will be 50 Half Moon Lane, and number 9 will be 108 East Sunnyside Lane. Okay, number 1, 2023-34, 205 South Broadway. There.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Levine. I'm a project architect for 205 South Broadway with CGA Studio Architects. And will be presenting on behalf of the owners, Zara and Reza, this evening, who are also on the meeting. We were before the board last month, and there were still a few items to address on the memo from Han Engineering. So our last submission, I believe, took care of those final items. Our zoning calculations are in agreement with the memo. Han Engineering asked that we express the non-conforming lot coverage and floor area ratio as a percentage over the allowable, which we have here. The existing home, the lot coverage exceeds the allowable by 31%, and with the additions, we will be exceeding the allowable by 35%. And with the floor area ratio, the existing home exceeds the allowable by 9.5%. And with the additional finished floor area, we will be exceeding the allowable by 15.9%. And these two, we are asking to go before the zoning board to seek a variance for these items. The memo also asked that we clarify the top and bottom of the walls at the parking area, which we have done. This has also been indicated on Hudson Engineering's plan as well. We have a low brick wall here that's existing, and we're introducing a new low brick wall here to separate the driveway area from the entrance to the home, the back entrance. These walls range from 1.9 to 2.7 feet. And are, really just a like a low garden wall. And finally, there were comments from, and this is Hudson Engineering's drawings. They've also indicated the top and bottom of walls. And they have also addressed, there were about 4 comments related to civil engineering notes that Han Engineering wanted to be added to the drawings, which have been done. And finally, the landscape consultant requested that we clarify how the roots would be protected at the trees near the construction, and notes have been added to indicate how the roots are to be handled, and if they're encountered during construction, they will be pruned by a certified arborist. And I think those are the extent of the revisions that we have submitted.
Okay, you did such a fine job on the renderings. Could we just glance at them? You had it up initially.
Sure, this is again, this is the existing home, the existing porch. This is also an existing porch that we will be filling in. We're maintaining the roof and the half timber detail, but we are filling in this porch to create a mudroom back entrance to the home. And again, this is a existing sunroom, and we are adding a second floor addition. And I will take you to the other renderings here. We're adding a second floor addition to create a primary bedroom suite at the second floor. And that second floor addition ties into that existing porch at the side of the home.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
as we said, it appears that the new integrates well with the old without destroying the uniqueness of the building. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
No question.
No questions.
Sarah, anything in the public?
Nobody is raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Anybody in person? Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Whereas in November 2023, Reza Mojtabe Zamani and Zara Egal applied for site development plan approval to construct an enclosed porch, second floor addition and below grade basement addition and related improvements to their house at 205 South Broadway. And whereas the proposed construction would exceed allowable coverage and floor area ratio, therefore requiring variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated October 30th and December 1st made a number of comments which were all addressed in subsequent submissions. Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated October 31st and December 4th made several recommendations which were addressed in subsequent submissions. Whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on November 1st and December 6th and January 3rd, 2024. And whereas the actions type 2 action under secret, therefore requires an environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled renovations and additions to 205 South Broadway prepared by CGA Studio Architects, and the drawings are specified. And the drawings prepared by New York Green Roofs, and those sheets are also specified. And the drawings entitled Proposed Additions and Alterations 205 South Broadway, prepared by Hudson Engineering and Consulting. Sheet C1 and C2, subject to receiving variances from the ZBA for coverage and FAR.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I make a motion to approve the resolution as read. Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, thank you very much. Good job, well done, and thank you.
Thank you
Sure
so
it's gonna-
much. Okay, appreciate it. Good night.
Yeah.
Number 2023-33 would be 37 Maple Street.
Good evening, board members. Trevor Spearman, architect, on behalf of Nathan and Heather Martin, residents at future residents at 37 Maple.
Okay, thank you.
So the application has been modified. It's been in front of the board a couple of times recently. And in the desire to try to move the main project along, which is the addition of a small stair tower and some window wells and a patio and a pergola, we have deleted from the application for this application, at least, the garage and any driveway or parking or retaining wall work in the rear. So the application is revised. Revised calculations were provided. We still have two outstanding, I think, comments from Mr. Hahn, Hahn Engineering, one of which is a typo on our, I think, zoning table where we listed it still as 1,930 square feet. It's 1,920. But as of note, we are reducing the overall coverage on this property from 1,977 square feet currently down to 1,920. The other note was whether or not stormwater would actually be even required at this point. We did offer a Cultec XL HD 330, which more than stores the available or the added runoff. So we hope that that satisfies Mr. Hahn's concern in that regard, and we're willing to leave that dry well in place, even if it is borderline required. There's really no other changes to the application. Happy to answer any other questions or concerns the board may have.
Well, why don't you just show us what you're gonna do quickly from the site plan?
Yeah, so now the application would allow or leave the existing one-story stucco garage to remain. There is an existing retaining wall here that would just remain. All
Wait,
of the
wait.
land.
We don't have the site plan up.
We see three different documents up.
None of which is the site plan.
If you could put the site plan up, then we can see what you're talking about.
You see it now?
No, we
Nope.
see two documents with photos and then another one with,
More
We just see your
photos.
files open.
Okay, let me stop share, or let me do a new share here.
There you go.
oh, now we can see it.
Okay, sorry. I'm a victim of multiple screens and not super technologically savvy. So here we have, sorry?
I said we're all guilty of technology. Go ahead.
Yeah, so here we leave the existing one-story stucco garage alone. We have the existing retaining wall and a couple of steps that will remain. These are indicated on the existing and proposed coverage maps as appropriate. And then what we do here is we still add the patio and the pergola and the work that's involved in creating our new stair tower to allow a more successful and code compliant stair to the second floor. In addition are the small window wells here and here that would remain as part of this application. Although we do intend to perhaps apply again for some kind of modification to the garage or create a parking space, we're kind of working on alternates there and understanding that it was, you know, in order to expedite, perhaps a better idea at this point to just eliminate that from this application. So the work would still involve this area here and this area here, including drainage. And that really is the application at this point.
I understand you're taking a tree down and adding 6 trees.
Correct. Yes, we had all the trees around the property documented properly. And if we go down here, we have one large tree here that we propose taking down. The reason is the root scape of that tree would really be in this entire area, and no matter what our future solution may or may not be, we would propose that some of this land in here be excavated down. It's only about 2 to 2.5 feet, just to create a more flat lawn area here. And this tree also, I had it as perhaps unhealthy. Let me just bring a
That's okay.
picture here. The certified arborist said it was, if worked on, was possible to be saved and could survive. But that, with its root ball in this area here, we think would be prudent of us to kind of remove it at this point. And then we have a small tree here. Once again, we're getting kind of close to our small patio area here. Remembering we are deleting a much larger patio area, and we think it prudent also to remove there. Then we line tree protection around to protect all but one other tree, which is actually being kind of certified as a tree in poor health. And then we propose replacements that far exceed actually the DBH, in addition to some screening around the patio area, indicated here as our 3 trees, which are listed adjacent.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That's it from us.
Any comment from the board?
No, no comment.
No questions. I have none. Sarah, any comment from the public?
Nobody is raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Anybody in person? In order that I not ask that question every time, but you're here for, okay. Okay, Mary Ann, do you have a resolution?
Whereas in November 2023, Nathan and Heather Martin applied for site development plan approval to construct a 2-story addition and patio to their house at 37 Maple Street and to expand the garage. And whereas the property is located in the View Preservation District, and whereas in response to the planning board's objections in their submission for the January 3rd, 2024 meeting, applicants removed the garage expansion from their application. And whereas the proposed building coverage is being reduced but still exceeds coverage and is in a different location on the site, therefore requiring a variance from the zoning board of appeals. Whereas Hana Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated October 27th and December 4th listed a number of issues which were addressed in a subsequent submission. Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, in memoranda dated October 31st and December 4th, made several comments which were addressed in a subsequent submission. Whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on November 1st and December 6th, 2023, and January 3rd, 2024. And whereas the proposed improvements would not negatively impact the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties. And whereas the actions type 2 action under SEQRE and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Martin Residence prepared by Spearman Architectural Design, PC, subject to 1, obtaining a coverage variance from the ZBA, and 2, complying with Han's January 2nd, 2024 memorandum.
Second. Thank you for reading the resolution. I make a motion to approve the resolution as written. Second. As spoken. Second. We all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're all done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all the members and Mr. Hahn and Sarah. Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm moving on to number 3, 2023-31, 10 Half Moon Lane.
Mr. Chair, good evening, members of the board. Darius Sheffield with the law firm of Harris Beach, here with Patty Steinschneider, and the applicant too is on the call. We're here today for continued public hearing on the subdivision. There was a number of requests last meeting from the board, and all those submissions were made to staff and I believe reviewed, and we're here to answer any questions or walk through the plan if you would like again.
It is of interest to a lot of people, so why don't you just walk through it?
Sure. Patty, do you want to, looks like you have it up. Do you want to sort of walk through what we're doing and,
Quickly,
yes.
I know Patty has a tendency to not be quick, but
I am a man of few words tonight.
put me to sleep.
You, you, you know where it is. I don't need to talk about that. You've already seen the property survey, no issues with that. Here is the site plan showing the property divided into two parcels with, not imaginary, but, example homes that comply with the code. We did make an important change to this drawing in accordance with Hans' instructions to us about how it works with front yards. We previously only showed a front yard on Half Moon, but he pointed out that West Clinton Avenue actually continues down past that in terms of, I guess it's pretty much a paper street and a little parking area, but it's still a front yard. So we've adjusted the front yard setback along that side to also be 35 feet. So I think we're good with that. I think that was the only comment that Han had. So I think we're in good shape with it. We've really got two things here. One is the site plan, which, that's what you need to be able to do the subdivision. But obviously, one of the big things here is the fact there's an existing house and pool, which need to be removed for this subdivision to go forward. So the other three sheets we've submitted are pertinent specifically to the demolition of the house and the pool. One sheet is showing the site protection plan and how the materials will be handled as the house and the pool are being taken down. We show two any track because it's going to be easier to get to one side from one side and the other side from the other side. So we've got that figured. We also, we're providing silt fences, construction fences, tree protection, all of the things to make sure that the property is in good shape when we're done. And I think elaborate, this is not a man of few words, a demolition sequence notes and mitigating measures, which go step by step through the entire process to protect not only the site, but also the neighbors and the surrounding community. Issues like dust that can come up are addressed in this. So I think we've covered most of those concerns. And the last sheet was just making a special note of the protection of the trees, because there are a lot of, nice trees on this property. So specific protection measures so that no trees will need to be damaged to do this demo work. And that's pretty much what we're at. And I don't know if you have any questions.
And you went over the whole thing. And Doug, you're on Zoom. You're okay with the demolition plan?
Yeah, I don't have any comments on it aside from what I had already. Minor.
Okay, and Mary Ann, all the changes,
Yeah, you know what, Patty, do me a favor, because I just thought this, go back to the last of the, no, S 1.2, I think, or A 1. Yeah, there's number 28. Did you change Dobbs Ferry to Irvington? I can't see that from here.
Yes, we went before the governor and we had
Just what's up there now?
I corrected the note. I had it, I had used that same note in another thing and got it, but now it says Irvington. That's
you
right.
really know how to stretch a yes out.
Yes, yes, there's a lot of back and forth, but the changes were all made.
Are they aware of the resolution as drafted,
Yeah, I sent a copy of it to
The-
Darius
the-
this
the-
afternoon.
the last conditions that we,
I sent a copy of the resolution I'll be reading tonight to Darius this afternoon.
okay. Darius, you have any questions before we go through the effort of reading the resolution, which is probably quite long?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
We have any questions from the board?
How long do you estimate demolition to take?
Because we're doing this more carefully than just knocking a building down, I think it will take a month, maybe 6 weeks. What we're trying to do, the first step in all this, from the time it actually starts looking like it's being demolished, it'll probably be about 3 to 4 weeks. But we have to do some pre-work before we start taking things down. In any house this old, you're concerned with hazardous materials. And if we do find asbestos, lead, anything like that in the house, we're going to kind of surgically remove those things. That's one of the reasons we're showing different containers in our site. But I would say from the time it starts to the time it's finished, you'll go from what it looks like now to where it looks like a graded out yard with plant seed down and salt hay. So, within 6 weeks.
Be optimistic.
Well,
Okay, thank-
The-
okay,
I stopped. I've seen it
Darius,
for 2 days,
He's
do
a
you have any
bad-
questions?
No, he's a bad witness, though.
Yeah, right.
My track record's pretty good on at least winning my client.
You don't want to a witness who goes on for a half hour when he could have said yes.
You should see my depositions.
I'm glad I don't. Mary Ann, do we have
I have no question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay. Mary Ann, you want to read we have a resolution for approval tonight?
I do. Was in September 2024, Sushil and Lakshmi Malhotra applied to the planning board for determination of site capacity of 2 lots designated as 0 Half Moon Lane and 10 Half Moon Lane, identified in the tax map as lots, well, in short, 7 and 8. Whereas the applicant's representative advised the planning board that the 2 lots had been subdivided in or around 1988, but did not provide any proof of the subdivision, including approval by the Westchester County Department of Health. And whereas the planning board advised the applicants that they would have to provide proof documenting the subdivision if they wanted the board to consider the lots 2 separate lots. And whereas tax lot 7 is developed with a large house and associated improvements, and tax lot 8 is improved with a swimming pool, patio, stone walls, and other structures accessory to the house on tax lot 7. And whereas the village attorney advised the board that a site capacity determination could not be made because the lots were not vacant as required by 224(8) of the zoning code. And whereas the village attorney advised the applicants that a subdivision into 2 lots could not be approved as long as the existing structures remained on the 2 properties, because the subdivision would render each of the lots non-conforming as to the area and use requirements of the zoning code. In November 2023, applicant returned to the planning board with an application for subdivision approval for 2 lots to be conditioned on all existing structures being removed from 2 lots. Whereas the property lies in the village's 1F20 zoning district, which requires a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. And tax lot 7 contains 45,375 square feet, and tax lot 8 contains 35,969 square feet. And whereas the applicants submitted a hypothetical site plan showing that each of the proposed lots could be developed with a house conforming with all area requirements of the zoning code. And was prior to the December 6th, 2023 meeting, planning board chairperson Manfredi, building inspector Marin, and village landscape consultant Nolan walked the lots and observed that there were no water bodies, wetlands, or groundwater on site. And whereas on December 6th, the planning board held a duly noticed newspaper and mail public hearing on the preliminary subdivision approval of 010 Half Moon Lane, and several neighbors appeared and expressed their concerns to the planning board. And whereas at the December 6th hearing, the planning board reviewed the secret environmental assessment form part 1 submitted by applicants, and reviewed the part 2 impact assessment, and determined that for all the areas listed, no or small impact may occur from the proposed subdivision. And whereas the newspaper and mail notice was given of a continued public hearing on preliminary subdivision approval, and of a new public hearing on final subdivision approval to be held on January 3rd, 2024. Whereas on January 3rd, the planning board continued the public hearing on preliminary subdivision approval and held a new public hearing on final subdivision approval. And whereas the planning board has carefully studied applicants' proposed subdivision and come to the conclusion that it conforms to the village's official map and comprehensive plan, and will not increase danger to health, life, or property, or aggravate a flood hazard as required by Irvington Code 188-15. And whereas the planning board has also determined There will be no foreseeable difficulties in complying with the village zoning code and building on the two newly created lots as required by Irvington Code 188-19. Whereas the planning board has determined that this two-lot subdivision will generate the need for additional recreational facilities. And whereas the planning board has also determined that suitable recreational facilities cannot be properly located on this site. Those two clauses are necessary to impose the recreation. Now therefore be it resolved, that the planning board finds that the proposed two-lot subdivision will not result in any adverse environmental impacts and therefore issues a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And be it further resolved that the planning board grants preliminary subdivision approval and final subdivision approval of the two-lot subdivision reflected on final subdivision plat prepared for Sushil and Lakshmi Malhotra, prepared by Ali Surveying, subject to the following conditions. 1, within 1 year of this resolution, all structures on the site must be removed as shown on the site protection plan and in compliance with site protection details, demolition sequence notes, and the proposed tree protection plan, all prepared by Gotham Design Planning and Development, and the entire side must be graded and planted with grass. I'm gonna not read for a second. And the reason we didn't have to go into a lot of details about what has to be done with this site is it's all in this demolition sequence notes. Because rather than we have some conditions, it made more sense to just say it's got to be done as shown in that plan, which has been reviewed by Caesar, by Ed,
And Doug.
by Doug. Okay, back to this. 2, the final subdivision plat must be approved and signed by the Westchester County Department of Health. 3, prior to receiving a demolition permit, applicants must post a bond to provide a cash escrow in the amount of $150,000 to ensure proper cleanup of the site. 4, applicants must pay a recreation fee in lieu of parkland in the amount of $15,000. 5, applicants must pay any outstanding application and professional fees. 6, the lots shall not be developed until the planning board grants site development plan approval. And be it further resolved that the planning board directs the chairperson to sign the final subdivision plat once all of the above conditions are met. And be it further resolved that this approval shall expire if all conditions are not met by January 4th, 2025. We gave them an extra day. Didn't count to that.
Well, if we would have known it was gonna take 6 weeks, we would have changed it. He gave too much information. All right, okay.
That's it.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution as read.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, okay, it's passed.
Okay, wait, Caesar.
And you
you got
said
it.
I had to sign
You
something?
have to sign the negative declaration. That's what it says.
Okay.
Yeah, Caesar, can I say one quick thing?
Oh, God, yeah.
Just wishing you, the board and the village, Happy New Year.
Oh, okay, thank you, you too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Harris, you got a nice tie on tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Happy New Year.
10, boom, that was that. Number 4, 2022-21. The year 21 is misleading. This was a revision of a past approval, so it's not like it's been around since 21. 52 Field Terrace.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Casey Brenner from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz. David Steinmetz says hello. He could not be here tonight, but it's great to see you all and Happy New Year to everyone. With me tonight is Alan Pilch, the project engineer, John DiPaolo of the Up Studio Project Architects. I believe Brian Hyla of Apex Projects, the builder, should be joining. Sarah, I'm not sure if you see him, but hopefully he joins in a few. I will turn that over to Alan and the team shortly to go through the plans and details. But briefly, quick summary. Oh, great, that's Brian now. We represent Emily and Jamie Sahara. You may recall in November of 2022, your board granted site development plan approval for the Saharas to construct a zoning compliant single family house on their property, which was previously vacant on Field Terrace Avenue. Project has since received a building permit and site work is well underway since, I believe, last summer. We are here tonight to request amended site plan approval. Briefly, in the first instance, we are seeking to place certain temporary structures on the property in connection with the completion of construction. This includes a trailer, a storage shed, and a dumpster. And the need for these structures became apparent after site work commenced. And these structures would be located in the northeastern portion of the property near the driveway to Field Terrace Avenue. And they would only remain for the duration of construction and be promptly removed once construction is complete. Second, an issue that more recently came up, we're also proposing to extend the approved retaining wall on the property. So the extension would make the wall reach the curb on Field Terrace Ave. This recently came up at a meeting on site, which was after we filed the initial amendment application, which was why we adjourned in December to hopefully consolidate the process. We renoticed accordingly. The builder has recommended this retaining wall extension, and I believe staff that was on site agreed with this idea. That we realized that closing this gap between the wall and the curb would further prevent any potential stormwater issues caused by water potentially going through that gap. Would also protect the integrity and longevity of the wall itself. As a result of these amendments, the project would still be zoning compliant, including with respect to coverage. The wall extension is a very minimal increase. I think it's something like 5 square feet of coverage added. We also are fairly confident there would be no adverse impacts to any neighbors, either from the temporary structures or the extended wall. It would also provide benefits to both the applicant and the surrounding area, particularly the neighbor to the north, in terms of the stormwater. Accordingly, we would respectfully request that you consider approving these amendments tonight. But first, I will now turn it over to Alan Pilch, our engineer, and the rest of the team may jump in as needed to share the plans and add any additional details about the retaining wall, as well as address some of the recent comments we've received from Han Engineering. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Good evening, Alan Pilch here. Let me just see if I can share my screen. Is that screen visible?
It looks like it may be coming up. There you go.
Yes.
Now
Oh,
it is.
good. Oh, wonderful technology. This is thrilling me. So basically, I'll say the building has not changed. What was being proposed was, let me just see if I can just show this, was a construction, this is the driveway from Field Terrace going down towards the house. There's a construction trailer that was being added to here. That's marked with CT. That's where the trailer would be located. And we also showed a dumpster being located here, at the base of the driveway. The retaining wall that was extended was in this location. It was just a very short extension from the, it used to terminate right about here. I think actually it terminated right at the easement line. And now we're showing it being extended to the curb line itself. And those are the principal modifications. The other thing we had done as well is we had responded to some of the comments that were, I guess, outstanding that Mr. Hahn had provided to us. And we had responded to it. And I believe that most of the responses have been satisfactory to Mr. Hahn in his review. I know that there's an additional few comments that he had from the last memo, but I also think that some of it was like the location or the detailing of retaining wall and the guide rail on the top of the retaining wall. And I believe those are on the plans that were prepared by the Up Studio, the project architect. And so with that, maybe I'll turn it over to JD if he has any other additional items he wants to address.
You didn't cover the temporary parking area,
Oh,
CP. If that's what that is. As you
I
come
guess the
down to-
temporary parking area is located up. There's a temporary.
What's CP?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What is the initial?
Oh, CP. That's construction parking. That's correct. I'm sorry. That's where it is.
The first submission that you withdrew, that was swung up counter clockwise towards the property line. Is that not correct?
Right. Correct.
Right.
So we're
The
showing it
resolution-
here this way. There's a place for people to park well away from the all the activity. CM is construction materials.
And the resolution is going to reference tree protection along the northern boundary. The roots of those trees may have been compacted already, but you need to put tree protection along the northern boundary up there.
Okay, there is a line of silt fence and
Yeah,
construction
northern
fence
property.
along here,
That's
but
not what I'm talking.
that's
You go
fine.
to the property line, the north property line,
Right.
the north property, there's trees up there.
In this location that you're concerned with.
No.
Along here?
Yes, there, but there's trees
Okay.
along there.
Yes.
And we're
Well,
gonna ask for tree protection,
sure.
that's what the is in the approval. There's already a temporary road for your construction material there, which may have had some impact on the trees, but there's trees up there that need to be protected.
Okay,
Some of which are not even on your property.
right. Okay, I'll just point out that the intent of this like CF, which is construction fence, was to protect that entire northern part of the property. So I'll have to make sure that that is actually installed and functioning as requested.
Okay. Speaking of things under construction, the big swimming pool up there, and I'm sure you saw that. And I trust you understand that you really shouldn't pump out the muddy water into a waterway.
Right. Understood.
Okay. All right, you're gonna hand it off to somebody else. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll stop my share.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, everyone. John DePaulo from the Up Studio. I'll address the one question about the detail on the wall itself. Be happy to answer any questions on it. This was designed by our project engineer, and you'll see it here on the kind of right side of my screen. We'd be happy to submit this as well for sure, to the village. But essentially, it's a
That's
poured.
the same glass one, right? I mean, was there a guide rail or something that was proposed on the site plan?
The rail, the only rail that we have here is on the outside of this wall. I do have Alan's plan as well. I could just pop that up.
I thought I saw a guide rail or something separate, but if it's the same detail, that's fine. I remember we looked at that.
Yeah, I
So
believe it's
that's
the same
actually
detail.
here. And then, yeah, I think no, you are correct. So this outside line here is a interstate fence. So where my cursor is, you can see the outside line there. This line, and this line that come to this, common line here are the retaining walls.
Okay.
But this one here is a estate fence along the you know, that outer boundary.
Anything else?
That's it for me. Yeah. If any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, now that I'm looking real carefully at this, the trees I'm referring to are not quite up at the property, the north property line. They're on the north end. You'll see what I mean when you're up there.
Okay.
They may not be on the property line, but they're certainly on the north end of the property.
Sure.
Okay?
Understood.
You have anything else to present?
No, that was it.
And Ed, what about the removal to make sure that the shed doesn't stay on forever?
It's in the resolution.
That's in the resolution, okay. Any questions from the board?
No questions.
No questions. Sarah, anything online?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there were no comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Yeah, I have to fix this up again since you just said that the trees aren't on the property line.
Say the northern portion of it.
I'm just saying at the north end of the property.
Yeah.
I'm penning it in, but Sarah, I'll send you a revised. resolution.
Okay.
Whereas on November 2nd, 2022, Jamie and Emil Sahara received site development plan approval to construct a new house, garage, pool, driveway, and other improvements on their lot on Field Terrace, which construction began in August 2023. And whereas in December 2023, applicants applied for amended site development plan approval to install temporarily a construction trailer, storage shed, and dumpster for the period of construction, and to expand the previously approved retaining wall. And whereas Hunt Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated January 2nd listed 2 minor issues. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on January 3rd. And whereas the actions type 2 action under secret and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for amended site development plan approval for the temporary structures shown on the drawings entitled M. Saxon LLC Residence prepared by ARP Engineering. And the sheets are designated, subject to 1, installing root protection fencing around the trees at the north end of the property. 2, complying with Hunt's January 2nd, 2024 memorandum. And 3, removing the temporary structures by January 4th, 2024.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I make
I'm
a
sorry.
motion to approve.
But does the resolution say when do the structures have to be removed?
Yes,
January 4th, 2024.
I
5.
25. Okay, just making
Yeah.
sure. Thank you.
It did say, but it said the wrong year. Okay. I'll fix it on the
we almost tricked you. Make a motion to approve the resolution as amended for the date of removal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hey,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you very much. Really
Thank you
appreciate it.
all. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Next is number 5, it's 2023 37. And it's 4 Oak Street.
Sorry, Sarah, can you demote me somehow? I'm staying on.
John, you're muted. John, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
very low.
Hold on one sec.
Now we can hear you.
John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing the Coopers on a project that was submitted last month. We made some changes based on comments that we received from engineers and the board last month. I can share screen quickly. One of the things that we picked up, we were asked to separate undocumented coverage as part of the zoning analysis. We made that change and
I
showed.
don't see anything.
Is it coming up now?
No,
Just the cover page.
the heading comes.
Oh, yeah, that's, I'm sorry. So yes, here, we made some changes to the zoning diagrams and pulled out, undocumented coverage as a separate category and changed the percentages accordingly. Also, we revised the design in order to accommodate, a parking space. On-site parking, so, basically, the porch that was shown along the eastern side of the property was reduced in order to provide a full parking space on site, which is similar to the parking space that is there now. We also provided a visual impact study confirming that the proposed project would not have any impact on river views from the site. So we provide a visual impact study from 3 locations along the street. And you can see that the proposed, the locations of the proposed addition that would have no impact on existing views. We also provided in our drawing set building sections of the, we've added building sections to the proposed addition as revised, indicating its relationship to the neighboring property. So if you see here, this is the neighboring property at 5 Willow, and this is the proposed addition. Just to clarify that the building is, and we've confirmed also that the building is 1.5 stories as proposed. Then you can see, you know, the impact that it would have on upper level and lower level windows. We also revised the proposed site plan to leave the existing hedge in place. So the existing hedge along this side would remain as proposed and not be removed. And we also, based on comments from the board, we added to the west-facing facade of the building, we provided additional windows to the proposed addition, revised the kitchen design in order to provide additional windows. So this facade has a, you know, more traditional look. And in the change that we had made to the building to provide for the parking, you can see here on this front facade. So this porch is reduced. Instead of running across the whole length, it's been reduced this way to just be the minimal required for an entry. And that led to a reduction in coverage. So the coverage variance request is much smaller than what it was, and it's just an increase of about 1% over existing. And not including undocumented. So I think the comments that we received from Han this month focus on the variances that were required to move the project forward. And there's one note from Suzanne Nolan, the village landscape architect, about the species of the plants that we are showing. We should quickly go there.
The Japanese holly is not native.
Right, yeah, that was a mistake. We had a typo indicating that it's native, but we'll revise those to the plant species that she suggested, which is totally fine and a native alternative to what we proposed, both in these locations here. So that's the changes that we made to date. If there's anything else you guys want to address or discuss, let me know. We'll go there.
bring up the south elevation view?
Of the proposed.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you familiar with the previous application of, I don't know how many years ago? Of what was previously denied by the zoning board?
We had asked for that and we just received a copy of it earlier today from Sarah. So I did take a quick look at it. It wasn't available online. It had to be provided to us. But it is, I think it's a similar approach, but the building is larger, goes up higher. So instead of, you know, the building that was proposed last time was a garage, so it was approximately 21 feet wide, which is the whole length of the building. So the roof form went up higher than what was proposed here, I think. But I haven't had time to review that. We just received that this afternoon.
Okay. Lori, any comment?
Not right now.
No comments at this time. I have no further comment. Before we do that, Sarah, anything from the Zoom?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay. We have people in the audience who are anxiously awaiting to speak for 1 hour.
Not that anxiously, but waiting to speak. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Brian Burke. My wife Patricia and I are here to renew our opposition to this site development
If you have
plan.
to state your address.
Okay. My wife Patricia and I own the home at 5 Willow Street, which is directly next to the 4 Oak Street property that's at issue in this site development plan. We had an opportunity to review the proposed revisions that were made since the December meeting. And we don't believe that any of those revisions really directly address the concerns that we raised in December. I just have a few quick points I'd like to go over about the new plan and versus the old plan.
When you say the old plan.
But the original
Oh,
plan that has been proposed this time, and then we can talk about what was covered by the plan that was denied 20 years ago as well.
Okay, so the old plan is the first plan.
The first plan, yeah, and the differences here that I was able to see were that they have now called this a 1.5 story addition rather than a 2-story addition, which is the way it was described in the original plan. As you will see, the proposal that was made in 2004 was also for a 1.5 story addition. The important point for us is that the peak of the roof on the new addition is going to be 21 feet 4 inches above the grade of their property, which comes to directly below the attic window. The top of our 2nd story windows on our home are 18 feet above the grade of our property. So there's going to be more than 3 feet, and well, also the grade of our property is lower than the grade of the Oak Street property because we're downhill slightly from where they're located. So there's going to be about 4 feet of roof above the top of our 2nd story window created by this new addition, which is going to create the same kind of a tunneling effect that the plan that was proposed 20 years ago and defeated was going to create. It's the height of that roof that is really the crucial factor. And that height is not as high as what was proposed in 2004, but it's almost as high. So there's no material difference between this addition that's being proposed here and the addition that was proposed in 2004. Now, I didn't know how complete the village's records are with respect to these old applications that were denied. So I spent today going through my own records, which are complete, but sometimes difficult to find. And I do have pictures of the original plan that was proposed in 2004. I thought it might be helpful for the board to look at those just to establish as a matter of evidence that these plans are materially identical. And I was wondering if we could offer that into evidence this evening as to what the old plan was.
Okay.
Okay, to offer it to the board, to let them see what the original plan in 2004 looked like. I believe I got 3 copies. Who should I
Let's get one copy.
So I think that when the board reviews this, and if the village still has its records, they'll be able to verify that this was in fact the plan that was proposed in 2004. And it's not significantly different than the plan that Mr. Malone is presenting here this evening. The next point I want to talk about for a moment was the variances. My understanding is that this plan is going to require, as the other plan did, a FAR variance and a front yard setback variance. In order to get this plan, the FAR variance, within a reasonable level or a less than a dramatic level, they are pulling up a bunch of bluestone and eliminating some concrete sidewalks and eliminating a play area, none of which have any impact on our property and which we're completely content with. But apparently the way the FAR works, if you do that, it gives you more room to build this addition that they're doing. And so what's really happening is they're exchanging a structure, a 1.5 story structure, for what is currently bluestone and concrete and a play area. So the real effect of this FAR on the neighbors is going to be much greater than you would indicate by the percentage variance required, because you're exchanging stuff that does not have any effect on us with stuff that has a dramatic effect on us.
And before you go on, when you take, I think you're referring to actual coverage.
Coverage, yes.
Not far. When you take the playground or the pavement out, that's coverage. And they took walkway out, that's coverage, and replaced it by the footprint, the coverage footprint of the building. FAR is a floor area ratio.
Right.
It's just the actual structure.
It's a massive bulk.
Excuse me?
The FAR is a massive bulk. It's the
Yeah.
size of the structure. Coverage is what it covers on the
What
wall.
was the FAR for this?
It's
It does need it.
it needs a FAR variance also.
It's over, by 19% over what's allowed,
Okay.
24.
So what the existing building is probably over too.
It's 24.9% greater, well, what's allowed is 2440. The existing is 2338, it's actually under. And, the proposal is 2921.
Okay, so you're talking about the bulk of the building, the floor area ratio is going up, okay. So you were referring to.
So the coverage area, but the coverage area does not affect the amount, the size of the variance that has to be granted.
Just the coverage
It's
variance,
it's
but
2
not the
points.
FAR.
You merged 2 points to 1 when you said FAR.
Okay,
You probably meant coverage and FAR. They understood what you said.
okay.
But just, we want to make sure you understood for your next step.
But am I accurate to say that they're trading off stuff that has
You're
no
correct.
effect on us for things that will have an effect on us? And in order to reduce the
Can't say-
size of
we
the
can't say,
variance?
like, we
Reduce
can't-
the coverage.
Yeah,
In order to reduce the coverage, there's 2 things here, coverage and FAR.
Mhm.
Those
But what-
things you're talking about don't affect FAR, they do affect coverage.
okay.
And it's very consistent with what we see other applicants doing.
Yeah, it seems to be the
Within
way that this is
Yeah.
played.
I see your point, but there's different purposes. And you can exchange, say, if you had a 200 feet of driveway.
Right.
Not driveway, the
Parking space.
Yeah.
parking space,
Mhm.
and you took that out. And then you replace it with 200 feet of a building. The coverage stays the same, but now you have a building instead of a paved.
That's my point, exactly.
I understand what you meant.
Okay,
but you're
okay.
mixing and matching.
So, okay,
terms.
so that was the first
And I can
comment.
understand that because sometimes we do that too.
Okay. Second point was on page A-014 of the revised plan, there is an aerial photo, which I think is very good in showing the relationship of our house with the 4 Oak Street house. And you can see how their house is lined up further north than our house is. So that there is no, for most of the length of both of the buildings, you're not looking out at the neighboring house. And it's that offset that is directly being impacted by the plan that they've proposed here, because they're bringing their house south so that they will now be blocking out the windows on the east side of our house, which currently have a view all the way across to Oak Street. The third point that I wanted to note was the window change that they made in their plan.
But that was something we asked for.
Yeah.
Can easily come out.
Well, yeah, Trish and I used to live in Manhattan, and I never liked looking in my neighbor's windows, and I didn't like them looking in my windows, and I still don't. And I think that this would only raise privacy concerns. I mean, they have windows now in this new ensuite bathroom and walk-through closet that are being created that will look directly into the window in our upstairs hallway. I don't think that is necessarily an improvement over no windows at all. So
That's partially my preference not to have big blank walls.
yes.
We can accommodate.
But I'm not sure I would prefer staring into someone's home or their bathroom rather than having a blank wall there to stare at. I think they're probably equally bad. So the other thing that I wanted to ask about that I read and was concerned about was the drainage situation that the engineer had brought up. As I said, our property is downhill from their property. And the excavation looks like they're going to have to be excavating at least 4 or 5 feet deep in order to create the footings for this new addition. That's moving a lot of soil that is, within 20 feet of our wall. We have had water problems in our basement in the past and had to take remedial measures, as most people in the neighborhood have. So I'm concerned, and I at least want to go on record expressing the concern that this much digging in this confined space could easily have an impact on the drainage situation in our home that is not entirely foreseeable. And it's another concern we have about putting up such a large addition in such close proximity to our current home, which is over 100 years old. The final point that I wanted to discuss has to do with the variances and the process as this goes forward. My understanding is that this planning board tells the zoning board.
We don't tell the zoning board anything. They operate on their own.
So even if the variances that are sent to the zoning board are only a FAR variance, which we've seen is going to be necessary, and a front.
You're misunderstanding the process. We don't approve variances. CBA does, the zoning board does. We'll look at it as a measurement of bulk and mass. Well, if we pass it on to the zoning board, it's not approved. The zoning board does that. All variances are approved or not approved by the zoning board. So you made some very good arguments.
But the variances that are required, that's the
You
question.
made some very good variance arguments. And you should make the same arguments when this goes to the zoning board.
Okay, there was one argument that we had, an issue that came up last time. Could I have the water?
Yeah. Here you go, I got a bottle for you.
Yeah, I just need that.
So I understand that the zoning board approves any variances.
Correct.
But I thought that based on the site development plan that this body approves, they essentially say what the variances would need to be, or how far out of allowance under this current zoning laws the plan actually is. Am I mistaken about that?
I don't want to speak for the zoning board. Mary Ann?
Yeah, no, what the variances are determined by how far off it is from the zoning requirements. So that would be determined by the building department, really.
So the building department really determines that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's already actually been determined, that they need a coverage variance.
Right.
They need an FAR variance. They need a front yard setback variance.
Right.
And they need a rear yard setback.
No, side yard for the.
And that has to do with
We
the,
had rear yard for the mechanical equipment. That's what Doug had. Is it side yard?
But it's
Okay.
either a rear or side.
well, there was an issue, and
Once.
I think Mr. Merrimack remember this, the last time this thing came up. Okay. The last time this came up, there was a question, because these are corner lots under the zoning corner lot rule. The two sides that are on a street,
Front yards, yeah.
are front yards. But then you choose of the other two sides that are not on a street, which one is the side yard and which one is the backyard. And it appears that choice has been made here that the west side of their property is going to be a side yard. So that it's only 10, they can build only 10 feet away from our property line. That means that they do not require, well, except for the pad they're building, I think, for the HVAC equipment, they don't require any other backyard variance because it's a side, it's not a backyard, it's a side yard.
So the code says that you're required to have one rear yard. Doesn't say you have to have two rear yards. So we take history of the house, and it was clear from the history of the house and the location of the house that the rear yard was always facing the front of Station Road.
That the rear yard.
So so in other words, it was to the south and not to the west.
Okay, so this is my point on zoning, which perhaps is not even properly raised here, but it's a point I want to make. The purpose of a backyard and a front yard variance, which are 30 feet rather than 10 feet, as opposed to a side yard, is it's supposed to protect the light and air of the structures that are on the property. Now, the structures on this property are arranged so that the long side of both buildings runs from north to south. And therefore, it's the windows on the east and the west side that allow in all the light and air. That's true on our property. And it's true on the Cooper's property as well, because they look out from their west windows over our garden, and we look out from our east windows over what is currently their garden. If the purpose is to protect light and air, then the backyard should be the west side of their property, because that is where the light and air is coming from. And if that were the case.
It's a good argument for the ZBA. So what we struggle with is owners' rights and neighbors' rights. But more importantly here, what we struggle with is it's been consistently through the years treated the south lot as the rear yard. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to give an automatic appeal by changing it.
I think what we're going to do, and I don't want to cut you short, but are you done?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make that point
Well,
that
that's an
we
interesting-
think that
It's an,
we really ought to have a backyard
It's a
variance
conundrum.
here.
that's a very good discussion to have with the ZBA. Is what I'm saying.
What I think we're going to do, because there was a previous ruling, I don't want to guess what the ZBA might or might not do. So we're not going to pass a resolution to approve what's going on. But I think it's okay for the applicant to go to the ZBA and see how their opinion of the different application, which you said is slightly lower, or how much lower? It's a little.
It's
hard
when
to
you
tell from this.
review the plan, I think
Yeah.
you'll see there's no material difference between what they're proposing.
It
and what was
appears
proposed
you're
by
correct.
us.
Let the ZBA make a determination. They already made one. Maybe they'll look at it, different people, maybe a different design. I think we would let the applicant go to the ZBA, and you can make all those variance arguments to the ZBA. And that's what they do. And believe it or not, we've had passed resolutions to approve things, and the ZBA has disapproved variances after it passes through us, because they look at it differently than we do. So I think that's the best thing to do. And John, if you're listening, which I assume you are.
Yep.
If you come back with an approval of the ZBA, take the windows out.
We can do that. One of the things I wanted to point out on that front is that if there's an issue of privacy on that side, I think we should be weighing the benefit to the applicant, but we can take those out, but just quickly, sorry, let's see them on that direction. I'll just get to the end here. You can see that already in the area where those windows are shown, there's a existing hedge that will remain, that's evergreen, that's up to about 14 feet. And there's already a 5-foot fence in that area. So the windows in that area, I don't think the privacy issue is as great as we believe, at least from that first story.
Well, I mean, our main consistent to respond to Mr. Malone, that the window isn't blocked by the hedge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lori, what do you think about it?
I mean, I think the window should be there. I think it's much worse looking at
Okay.
a blank wall, but there's all, maybe they're willing to put more evergreen trees in or try and mitigate,
Well, it's gotta come back to us anyway.
Right.
Assuming you may get approval from the ZBA, then you have to come back and then we'll fine tune the screen and the windows. I think the windows is the least of the problems.
Right.
I think the ZBA is the critical part of any variance granted for the expansion.
I think you're right.
Then also quickly, just for a moment, and I will go quickly, is I think the establishment of the rear yard, if you look at the property, the width of the property overall, and you'll see here that the 30-foot width exceeds half of the overall width, especially from specifically from the Oak Street side. So if you treated the west side of the property as a rear yard, there would be no buildable area on the property because you'd have 30 plus 30 and the width of the property is only 50. So I think in terms of the rationale of how this got indicated as the rear yard, I think it's pretty clear. And I think that's why it's shown as a side yard and rear yard. But I just want to point it out to the board.
Okay, very good.
Could I just ask a question? If there were no buildable area on the property because the house was built before the existing zoning code, and then the zoning code went into effect, which precluded any further building on the property, would that be an unusual situation?
No.
No.
Yeah. And that's the reason for the zoning board.
Yeah.
Because these issues come up.
Because areas get upzoned and then there's exceptions and things change and the zoning code evolves. And generally what happens when they evolve, something goes wrong and they say, we don't want that to happen anymore. So the zoning code, the historic district was created because there was an attempt to knock down a historic building. So we have to fix that. So all of a sudden now we have, not all of a sudden, but after considerable consideration, a historic district and the demolition rules apply to the historic district. You're not in the historic district, so it's mostly Main Street. And now there's also, we pay close attention, not only to the historic district, but to unique buildings. If you were sitting here when we talked about the building at 205 South Broadway, that's not in the historic district, but it's a unique building and we gave special attention to outside architects that I know in the village to make sure it integrates well and doesn't destroy the building. And every time I drive down Buckhouse Street, I see the Trent building, the brick blockhouse slapped onto a Stanford white building and destroying it. I say, hopefully we'll be able to stop doing that when we watch out for unique buildings. Anyway, thank you very much. Did your wife want to say something?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Patricia Waters. I live at 5 Willow Street and want to thank my husband for an excellent job.
we both have spent days and hours on this. It's been extremely stressful for us because we went through this 20 years ago when we thought, you know, we're enjoying our lives. And the people that had been there before that tried to put an addition on and it was denied by the board, what they did was they finished the attic there. So they added another livable space. We've been in that house and it's got a beautiful attic. And then they eventually moved, and then the next people came in. They were there for 15 years and we became friends with them, and they knew what had happened. And they said, oh my gosh, we would never do that to you. So they knew what, you know, it was obvious what kind of the quality of our housing and our life and our light, how dramatic this would be. And a lot has been discussed about variances and zoning and this many feet and how high and all that. But it's, you know, it's really emotional for us. And we have these beautiful views. I mean, no, they're not looking at the river, but we look out and we see an expanse across Oak Street. There are trees. There's a lot of light coming in. So there's the aesthetic aspect of this too. And I just quickly, I want to make sure you got our letter.
Yes.
You did, okay.
And I thought the ending of the letter that nobody wins on this comment, I think whoever wrote it was accurate, and I hope it doesn't affect the friendship of the neighbors.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Change is hard. Change is hard, but I don't think it's unreasonable for a neighbor to want to improve their home and add some space. And I recognize that you see that as a hardship, but I hope there is a path forward with maybe some, you know, changes on their end and some acceptance on your end instead of just an outright, there should be no changes. I think that's a very tough stance to take.
Thank you. Yeah.
Excuse me. With all due respect, we were very open to changes. We were, this letter came totally unannounced. They had mentioned to us in passing while crossing or taking a walk down our street that they were going to build a mudroom. And then we got this letter in the mail. We are very open people and not inflexible.
That's what this process is for them.
We try to, if you saw the application on the get the exact number, 37 Maple, where the garage was going to be on a property line, and that, but now that's been taken because it was, they recognized that they needed to move on with what can be done and worry about what may be done later. And we recognize the need of, as Laurie said, somebody needs additional building space as long as it's not a hardship on the neighbors. So we're trying to weigh the need of somebody to enjoy their home and without too harshly affecting and what is too harsh and what's a little bit of the neighbor. So right now, I think it's best that we let the ZBA, the zoning board, decide on this because there are significant variances. And if that comes to fruition, the applicant will come back to this board and as Laurie said, additional screening or can work out, and we'll worry about the windows and the view from the window and the shrubbery. They did put back the shrubbery that they were going to take out. I don't understand why they were taking it out in the first place, but it's back. And I looked at it and it's quite significant, the existing screening that's there. So anyway, all right, John, anything else?
I think that's it. So the direction is to submit to zoning board and then come back once we have resolution at that level.
Well, you made the presumption that it would be coming back, but if the zoning board says whatever it says, if they agree with the variances, and then you'd be coming back.
Right, or if there's revisions, we'll have to come back with those revisions also, right?
That's true too.
Right, yes, that's what I was.
Okay, anything else, Lori? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it's processed.
Sarah, as a result of the conversations we've been having, anybody on Zoom?
No. Nobody's risen.
Doug, do you have anything to add? It was a drainage issue they brought up.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, right now it complies with all the village requirements and setbacks.
So that
No
that's
drainage.
just strict compliance, but still at work. I mean, have you looked at it? The stormwater is gonna be, additional stormwater from the new roof is gonna be taken care of.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next, one way or the other, we might see you back, Don. Thank you very much. It was a very thoughtful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, John, thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving on to 2023-35, 88 Fargo Lane.
Good evening, folks. Thanks again for your time this evening. We're back. My name is Mike Jacobs. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we're good.
Thank you. Okay. I never know. My name is Mike Jacobs. I'm an architect with Jacobs Chang Architecture, and I'm here on behalf of the owners of 88 Fargo, Vasily Bakaloupas and Monica Drager. And they're here in attendance tonight, but I'll be speaking on their behalf again. I was here in December to present the project for the first time. And since that time, we've addressed the comments that were provided by the town engineer and the building department. And what you have for this response submittal, I'm happy to walk through the whole thing again, but I suspect that everybody doesn't need that, but I'm happy to do it. Just let me know. But what I'd like to do maybe is focus. Okay, so maybe we'll just focus on the kind of major points of our resubmit. And then we also received a 15-point round of comments yesterday evening, which I think many of which I feel perhaps rightly or not are more administrative in nature, but happy to address those as well. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to share my screen.
All right, I'd like you to cover the view preservation first.
Oh, okay, absolutely. Yeah, I thought, okay, that's fine. I thought that was resolved last time, but
well, it may be, but we don't know.
Okay.
As you said, you worked with the neighbor. However, we're the reviewing agency, so we have to see it. You made a made a nice rendering of how you moved the proposed addition and the roof line. However, we couldn't find it in the submittal. I mean, you made a presentation at the meeting, but it's not.
I understand. Yeah, I think it's part of the so yeah, that change came kind of late because of the negotiations or the conversation with the neighbor. So it was included in this latest submittal that you got a few weeks ago. But of course, I'm happy to walk you through what that looks like.
Well, the plans may have it, but the rendering showing how the roof moved is not the visual from the neighbor's window that you showed is not mission.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that is true. We did present that last time. I didn't realize that was something that you guys wanted us to submit. It was not part of our initial package, as that photograph came from the neighbor's camera and email. So I guess we hadn't formatted that in our set of drawings as part of it. Sorry. But I'm happy to share that. It's this sequence right here, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are, just to kind of review, this is the photograph that was shared with us from the neighbor at 84 Fargo. This was kind of just our reference sheet, so just the overlay of our model. Of course, how the initial proposal that we had submitted to you initially was looked from his image that he shared, and then of course the final image, which was modified after some conversations with the owner and sort of addressing some of his concerns. And so just to kind of recap, we had shifted the proposed addition additional 2 feet to the south and lowered the roof line by almost 1.5 feet.
And the actual plans that we have reflect this rendering. They do, yeah. Ed?
Yeah, so this rendering right here is exactly that. This is now a PDF of the set of drawings that we submitted for this particular hearing. And all of the, if I just were to flip through, all of the architectural drawings now reflect, like this drawing here reflects that change, without confusing things. So we are now just under 4 feet above the existing roof line. It was originally 5'4", and then you can see here how well, I don't know if you can see it, but this is with that additional 2 feet of an extension away from towards the south of the property, so shifting it further south.
Okay.
Does that
I
make
see
sense?
that.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Are there any other questions on the view shed concerns?
No, you got some drainage issues,
Yeah.
but you can see with the engineer Doug Hahn. You got some tree issues, a better idea of replacement trees, size and type, protection of roots is shown as well as not shown to the satisfaction of our landscape architect. And Ed, you had some issues with the variance setback front and side.
Yeah, it's actually to benefit them, just a change in one of the lines.
What do we need for that?
On the,
Is he aware of what's needed?
I added that one.
It's on the list.
It's on Doug's memo.
What I think might be easier is to make an appointment to see Doug and I next week.
Okay.
And let's sit down and make sure we iron that. They're all little things, but there's a lot. Nothing bad, just we can't approve this and we want to approve you. All right.
Just so that, you know, on the question of yards, I think there was an assumption we were making that the west side, which is up on the page here, which is an existing setback of 50 feet, would be considered one of our front yards. And that the other front.
Yeah, we'll go over it.
Okay.
It's just.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's not what we said at the last meeting, and I don't want to try to have you guess it again.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, because this issue did come up and as Ed said, you tried to comply, but you didn't quite hit it right. And
We just want to get you, we want to drag you to the finish line.
Yeah.
No, I
wanna
understand.
have
I think maybe as I'm thinking ahead to a zoning variance request, we're already on the east side of the property, 9 feet non-conforming. If we are going to keep our proposal as is, I think, you know, again, just speaking on behalf of the owners, it's going to be hopefully a bit more digestible as a 9-foot non-conforming rather than a 34-foot non-conforming setback.
We got it. Let's just sit down for a little while.
And,
Okay.
and work on the trees with Suzanne Nolan.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did speak with Suzanne briefly. This is our tree removal plan. I think there was a comment. So the trees, there's one here, there's 2 here. We're proposing sort of replacement trees, and I think maybe there's maybe this area of the drawing just didn't get noticed, but I think this does address, this is in your submittal, but that the tree replacement sort of schedule, let's call it, does show the kind of proper names. I'm not sure. The size, yeah. So 6 to 8 feet approximate height, 6 to 8 feet approximate height, 8 to 10 approximate height, which was on her recommendation.
I think they they work on diameter.
Yeah, it was, you needed to put a few more trees. Give Susan a call, or we'll do it together when we meet.
Okay, fair enough.
And don't forget that rendering showing how the building moved and the roof lowered to better the view. That should be part of the submission, if you can include it to what is being with this, with all the site plan work and everything.
Okay, you want that on our set of drawings? Is that what I'm hearing?
But you don't have to put it in the drawing, just make it part of the rendering, part of what the formal document is.
Got
Or create it as a drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can't put the rendering part of the submission because of electronics, you can do it by drawing. Say, this is what it was, this is how we changed it, and the view is now this instead of that.
Okay, okay, but yeah, we're capable of that, of course, yeah. There was maybe some of the other major concerns with stormwater. I don't know if this is something we want to address here tonight, or is this again something that we discuss directly with the?
It's really a technical issue that all engineering and
Okay.
probably better to it's still an issue and it needs to be addressed, but we're not going to do engineering designs at this kind of meeting.
Okay. I think in terms of like the other big highlight or maybe addition to our submittal, there was a request for a section through the wood deck that's off to the back of the house. So we provided this sheet. I don't know if there's any questions here. But this area here where we're decking over a waterproof slab, and then this area here where we're removing stone pavers that are on the ground and graveling the underside of an open slat wood deck.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay. I think, you know, I got to say, I'm just a little confused at the process. This is the first time we've done this through Irvington. And so I think there were some, you know, what we were optimistic about is at least a conditional approval so that we could move to zoning tonight. I don't know if that's still possible. I feel like a lot of these comments, maybe if we can address them offline with the town engineer, that would be fantastic.
I think the setbacks are, I mean, if they're gonna have a variance on a setback, we should be accurate what they may be.
Yeah,
And
I think there's 4 or 5 days, I think, between now and the submittal for zoning. If we can manage to resolve this between now and then, we really are looking forward to that deadline.
Our schedule's not that flexible. I apologize.
Yeah.
Call me
Okay.
tomorrow early and I'll give you some times next week, or Doug and I will send me an email. Even
Okay,
better.
I apologize. I can't see who's speaking, so I just don't know who I'm
Ed
talking
Barron,
to.
sorry. Yeah.
Oh, Ed. Okay, thank you.
Send me an email in the morning with some dates. Send Doug and I, with some dates for next week. And we'll pick one. And if you can't make it in the office, we have set up the Zoom meeting.
Okay, I mean, in the effort to move things forward for the owners, I'm happy to just comply with what you've given us and say, okay, the 50-foot front yard is actually a side yard, and
I apologize, but this board actually makes sure that the package is correct before it goes to zoning board, and we just don't have that kind of time to get it right. It's just a little too much. We would have to drop everybody else's work to get this there.
Okay. I'm sorry, but we have to get the engineering
We
correct.
don't lose that much time.
We work together.
I mean, because just so he understands that this board, assuming everything is right at the next meeting, you can give him site plan approval subject to the variance, so it's not like he'd lose another.
It doesn't look like he's going this time. I mean.
Yeah, I don't
the
think,
board
so
does.
he wouldn't lose a whole month. It's not like then he has to come back, because everything is up all the site.
I
plan
think
issues
it's
are resolved
actually
the next
okay,
meeting.
right?
You understand that?
Okay, it just
I
can't-
don't understand most of what we're talking about here, to be honest with you.
Oh, no, what I was just saying is.
That's me down.
Village attorney, that if you, resolve all of the issues, all the site plan issues, there's no reason this board couldn't give you site plan approval, subject to you getting the variance. So if you've got it all zipped up by next meeting, you can get site plan approval and then immediately go to the zoning board
And then
and get,
you wouldn't have to come back here.
so, yeah,
That's our goal.
so you're not losing much time.
Well, if I'm gonna
We're
sort
same
of
time.
Okay, if you could just forgive me for this, I just need to repeat it back to you so that I understand that I'm hearing you properly. But what I'm hearing is that there's not going to be any ability for us to go to zoning for the next zoning board meeting. We're going to have to come back here first again in a month. And then if we can somehow designate properly the yard designation and the other conditions that are being asked for, the administrative issues, then we can have a conditional approval. I'm very confused by the process, to be honest with you. We've done this many times in many places. I'm just a bit.
Yes. Yes, this board could give you approval. It says you've got our approval, subject to you getting a variance from the zoning board, and you don't have to come back to this board.
You
Okay.
understand that?
Else to say it.
I think I understand what the zoning board could give us. I think I'm not understanding the process of getting to the zoning board.
Give me a call in the morning.
Well, if you come back with the correct variance distances, so that the building inspector and the engineer are satisfied that the setbacks are accurate.
Yeah.
And what the variance is being asked for is accurate, because you don't want to ask for a variance that's 10 feet and then it turns out to be 12 feet. And then you got to go back to the zoning board to change it from 10 feet to 12 feet after the engineer. So that would be even more diabolical to have to go to the zoning board twice.
I thought but just
let me finish. What we're saying is, if you get all the setbacks correct and the variance type requests accurate, then this board will pass a resolution approving everything, pending going to the ZBA and getting their approval on the variances.
See, so
Then you don't have to come back.
And if he gets all the other, comments.
Yeah, right,
on his
yeah,
memo,
assuming,
because there's
yes.
an awful lot of, as previously mentioned.
Yeah.
So they were mentioned last time and not this time, so you have
Well,
to be
I
real.
mean, I'm happy
No.
to walk you through where, like, there's a lot of, sorry. There
Well,
are a number of items on these comments that actually are in our drawings. I think they maybe were overlooked, or perhaps there are errors on our part in terms of outlining where they are.
And that's why we're offering to sit down with you to make sure you're complete for next month, so that you can move along. We're trying to be helpful here, and it seems confrontational on your part.
No, it's frustrating because I thought we were beyond some
On
of the
our
stuff,
part
but
too, because we want to move you along, and we're repeating ourselves.
I don't want to make you repeat yourself, of course. So. Okay.
I know you feel like you're probably losing a month because you're not able to go right to zoning. And I personally have gone through this process as a homeowner. And while it seems tedious, if the planning board can like get everything buttoned up and approved by the next meeting, then it'll just flow more seamlessly. And if you can just get comfortable with dealing with the next month, hopefully, by meeting with Ed and Doug, everything will be more seamless.
And one of the critical aspects of this application is the view preservation, and it's not in the application. That those pictures of the view are not in the application. Yeah. Okay.
I get that, but I didn't realize that they were a requirement. And so, if there was a request for them, we would certainly have put them in.
If this board is going to say the view preservation has been addressed adequately, we want to be able to point to how it was addressed in the record. And right now.
Fair enough. Okay.
And thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
It was 88 Fargo, where was she? 7. As I mentioned at the opening, number 7, 202 West Clinton Avenue will not be heard tonight. There are technical difficulties that need to be resolved. Moving on to number 8, 2021-20 is 50 Half Moon Way.
Good evening, everyone. Brad Schwartz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz. Happy New Year. Hope you all had good holidays. I'm joined by our client tonight, Adam Thyberg from Insight Engineering, the project site designer, and my colleague Casey Brenner. I think it's safe to say, Mr. Chairman, that we heard you and the board at the last meeting. We have significantly scaled back the design of the proposal that we had come to with last month. The current application seeks a minimal 1.4 coverage variance, which translates to 70 square feet over the maximum permitted. So I hope the board will support this request. We heard all the feedback last meeting and we went back to the drawing board. And again, we're coming back with a significantly reduced scale proposal that I will ask Adam to share his screen and walk the board through.
Sure. Adam Thyberg, Insight Engineering, Surveying, Landscape Architecture, PC. So as Brad had mentioned, obviously the coverage that's shown in the plan that was submitted has been significantly reduced from what was previously shown last month. Among the I guess the one thing that was obviously removed was the fence modification that had the knee wall. And the patios that were previously shown have been significantly pared back. This patio here, you can see, is just a simple 5-foot wide walkway to an 8-foot wide patio area off of the shallow end of the proposed pool. The pool is essentially the same dimensions as what was originally approved. We're showing the retaining wall that was discussed. That's been significantly reduced in length, which reduces our square footage. And then we also have our walkway to the porch here. Aside from that, it's things that have already been approved or that were a part of the original approval of the house, HVAC pads, and that's what got us to our current layout.
How did the wall become essential when it wasn't originally? Was it because the pool was moved, or how did the need for the wall and the coverage produced by the wall become a need? I think
No, the wall has nothing to do with the pool. It's simply that the grading that was originally contemplated through the side yard here was quite steep. The board will remember, as part of the view preservation conversation, that was a big topic with this application. The building was continually pushed down and pushed down and pushed down, which we wanted to work with the board on, and we continued to make those concessions and lowering the building on the site. Though the grading through this area works in a physical sense, now that we're under construction, it's much preferred to have this wall here to retain the soil so that we're not having such a deep cut along the side of the building. But to be clear, it has nothing to do with the pool. And again, the pool is essentially the same square footage as what was approved, and it's in essentially the same location, just slightly the rectangle is just slightly reconfigured.
Where the wall is, the neighbor to the south made a comment that some of the construction exposed the roots of his trees that you show there as 3 trees on his property on the south. We haven't, the village staff hasn't been able to do workload to go out and look at that, but have you done anything about that?
Well, that's another reason why we think it makes a lot of sense to include this wall, so that we can reduce the amount of cut that'll be in this area. The cut that's currently on the site does kind of roll off down in this area. This area has been cut down to close to proposed grades. That does roll off, and so that is kind of the current state. And obviously, the installation of the proposed wall would allow us to backfill that, certainly more than would be the case if we were to just grade that off.
Meanwhile, the roots are exposed. You might kill those that fell to the south trees. I think you ought to.
We'll talk to the contractor about getting potentially, if anything is exposed, getting some topsoil on there, maybe and putting down hay or anything that'll help stabilize it through the winter.
Well, we have two board members missing tonight due to unforeseen circumstances, so. Before I give you my opinion, let me canvass the board with Lori. This is the first that I didn't speak first. So she wasn't prepared. She was waiting for me to say something first.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion yet.
Well, that's good. That's perfect. And
So you're seeking a 70 square feet from the prior approval. Because you want, give us a short list of, is it just the retaining wall is the 70 square feet? And a small patio area you mentioned?
As well as this little walkway in the front connecting the driveway to the front of the house.
And by a little walkway, it went from
Nothing at all to 50 square feet.
Okay. All right, I'll let Caesar comment. I'll think.
Well, I think you should sharpen your pencil a little more. I think the absence here of two board members, we'll give them the undecided that the same undecided that Lori did. And I think if we had to vote tonight, you wouldn't want to hear it. So come back. And when we have a full board, this is a pivotal kind of decision. I mean, we strongly, very strongly believe in a new house meeting the code. And you'll appreciate the often used legal term slippery slope. And I don't want to be involved in that unless we have to. And so far, I haven't seen we have to yet. Even though it's 70 feet or 5 feet. I would rather, if we're going to vote on this, I'd rather the full board be here. Because like I said, it's going to be, this decision is going to be looked at in every single future house that's built in Irvington as to, is segmenting okay? And you know what I mean by segmenting. It's highly frowned upon in the seeker regulations. That's the State Environmental Quality Review Act. It's just not allowed. We want to see the whole picture, all at once. It changes how you look at it as opposed to coming in piecemeal. Yeah, the 70 feet. Yeah, we'd probably say yes in a minute if this was an old house, but it's a new house. It's different. Maybe the house would have been different if designed, if everything came in all at once instead of segmenting. Now, whether it was on purpose or it wasn't thought of, perception is reality. And perception is that, gee, let's build a big house and then come in for other stuff later. And I'm sure you didn't do that. Maybe you didn't do it. I don't know. But the perception is there. And like I said, this will be a blueprint for any future new houses. If we don't look at it carefully. And for the three of us, without the two members missing, to make a decision tonight. Besides, given my thought, if we made a decision tonight, you wouldn't like it. So come back, see if you can do more. And if you can't do more, come in with a better justification that it's imperative that we get these 70 feet. Because it's, and perhaps some members here might change their minds. But I think it's best that you come in even. Or if you really need it, you better have a damn good explanation of why.
Mr. Chairman, look, again, I hear you. And respectfully, it's the same explanation as last time. It was in hindsight, it was a decision that, would have been made differently during the approvals process. It was an oversight. At best, we're talking about, again, a 70 square foot, quote unquote, slippery slope. So we're coming in afterwards, and I understand your segmentation argument. But we're here to correct an oversight, and that's as candid and honest as we can be. It wasn't purposeful. It's an oversized lot. We're asking for 70 square feet that will not result in any community character or environmental impact. So I don't have a different or better justification. I mean, you see how minimal the improvements are. It's very basic. There's no tennis court, there's no fire pit, there's no extravagant request being made. It's a walkway, a minimal patio to allow a couple of lounge chairs and a retaining wall to help deal with some grading. So that's it.
I appreciate your presentation, but you certainly have to appreciate the fact that this could be a template for future houses, new houses. And I assume you appreciate the fact that at least one board member here is undecided. Then the next board member who spoke appeared to be undecided. And obviously the people who are not here don't have an opinion, which I'd be happy to hear if they were here. So unfortunately, you're not going to get a decision tonight because of the lack of a full board. Like I said,
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to just add, similar to your sentiments on the previous application. Obviously, the ask here is for the 70-foot variance that ultimately, would have to be decided by the ZBA or the zoning board. So I just would wonder if the board would entertain us being allowed to go to the zoning board or to referring us to the zoning board so that they can make their determination. And obviously we would be coming back to you for a final approval of this amendment.
No, we have to, we're going to decide first because we want to, and again, it's the new house syndrome of meeting code when you have a new house. And we feel very strongly about that. And perhaps the house would have been smaller if all this was thought out in the first instance without segmenting. And this is the reason why segmenting is frowned upon. Because you wind up with something that you wouldn't have ever approved in the first place.
Can I just point out that
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that it wasn't completely oversight, because I remember you specifically asking, what about a patio at the pool? And it said, we don't need a patio at the pool. And now you need a patio at the pool. So it was not, maybe some of it was oversight, but that certainly was not oversight.
Cesar, can I make a statement?
Go right ahead. This is
Have any alternates considered for the retaining wall, like a rock garden? Maybe, I don't know, think of alternates for the wall.
And that wouldn't be covered?
It wouldn't be covered if it wasn't a wall, if it was just a garden with rocks placed on the hill. Big rocks. Just throwing it out there.
Well,
and maybe
this properties have done that.
Other properties have done this, but more importantly, I think you'd want to show the board that you looked at alternates.
Yes, I think we're finished with that. And you mentioned there was talk about.
Brad, I think the contractor came in and wanted to discuss a electrical meter on the property line. You want to check into that before you come back?
On this project?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What has happened, we don't want to see you have to come back and we say no. To put a utility, the temporary is I'm not sure. I looked at it. I'm not sure if it's in the side yard, the front yard setback right now. But if you're going to move it to the front property line, that's not a good idea. And they would have to come back to us to do that. And I'm sure you don't want to come back again to us with something that we're not going to like.
Sounds like we're gonna open up a whole department at our firm on electrical meters in front yards.
Well,
I'll forward you the email from Tassos, and we've been trying to.
Right. Yeah, and obviously I didn't know about that, but I hear you. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. I
don't want you coming back without knowing what you're doing with that.
Yeah, Adam, what's your reaction to the, I mean, if we could deal with that tonight, Mr. Chairman, if you just indulge us, Adam, any thoughts on the rock as a potential option that we would go back and explore? I just want to see if we could deal with that.
Yeah, I think we can give it a look. I think we get back to our grading, conversation. I think we'd have to, yeah, we'll have to see. I'd want to study it a little bit.
So as I asked Adam the question, everyone, I was just communicating with the client through text. Look, we didn't know what the reaction was going to be. We really thought for 1.4%. We had a realistic shot. Obviously, we're hearing, Mr. Chairman, your thoughts tonight. In order for us to get the 70-foot removal to really bring it down to 0, and I would add as an aside, if this is going to be the position of the board, this policy, absolutely no exceedance, notwithstanding the avenue for variances, then the village might want to codify that so that way every homeowner understands going forward. It's not just a policy, but it's a written rule.
We have had exceptions when it benefits the village. A plain fence, wrought iron fence without a stone wall, or which looks better, a 4-foot fence with a 2-foot stone wall. That was a much bigger benefit to the village. And if you don't like the wooden fence, if you put a wrought iron fence or aluminum wrought iron, we'd look at that. But the coverage now at the fence, we're not going to look at that. And your letter said, was very emphatic at the end of the letter. So
if we were to remove the retaining wall,
if it's to the benefit of the village, we certainly would look at potential of a new house going over a code. And when will that happen? In the words of what the heck was his name? Potter Stewart, was totally unrelated to this, but I'll know when I see it.
that's quite a reference. How about, all right, so if we remove that retaining wall and come into compliance, could we get approval tonight? I guess Mary Ann can say there's no resolution ready, but and again, communicate with my client, we're prepared to remove the retaining wall and come into compliance. And if we could get an approval of that to be memorialized in a resolution afterwards, so then we can proceed, that would be appreciated.
Is the retaining wall, how many square feet is it?
Adam?
122.
Okay. That's up to you guys. I mean, it's up to you if you want me to do, I could,
I don't see how that's gonna make such a big difference in the winter and like, we're not holding up construction at this point, correct? I'd rather figure out the electrical, make sure they really want to do a rock garden.
Since you don't have to go to the ZBA, why don't we just wait till next month and make sure that the electrical panels addressed as well?
Again, I'm reluctant on such a project of significant issue without the full board, and I value everybody's opinion.
All right, look, then we'll see you next month, but to foreshadow, we're gonna come back with a fully compliant plan, and we would ask that a resolution be ready for February.
Your request is noted. I suggest you fully explore that utility service pole.
We can get maybe with Ed's office and the utility, and we'll get that cleared up and make sure that's addressed with the our submission for February.
Well,
That's a thank you.
that's a thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
I hope it's
Oh,
not on the
sorry.
front. Okay, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but unfortunately, we're not a full board. And like I said, for a significant issue that will possibly come back to haunt us a dozen times in the near future, or at least 2 times in the near future, it's not on the same street. I prefer the full board to be here.
We'll see you next month.
Okay, thank you very much. think we're on number 9.
Number 9.
2024-108 East Sunnyside Lane.
If you're here, oh, you,
Oh. I never asked if there was any public. No.
They're all asleep.
I let the record show that we did ask late, but there was no body on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. All right, my name is Greg Cacciapoli, engineer on the project at 108 East Sunnyside Lane. I'm here representing the owner, Tim Connick, who's also listening in on Zoom. The property is located in the 2F zoning district on approximately 0.23 acres. The majority of it is within a 100-year floodplain and adjacent to a water course. Sorry, I want to share my screen while I talk. The original intent of this application was to construct a gravel patio, extend existing gravel walkways on the property from this staircase to this existing walkway, and do some minor grading, as well as obtain approval on existing on-site retaining walls that were rebuilt without being permitted. We have decided, after seeing Mr. Hahn's memo, that we're no longer going to be moving forward with the addition of the gravel walkways or the gravel patio or any site grading. So the real purpose of this application has become to obtain proper approval for the reconstruction of the existing retaining walls. I am aware that what I submitted may be lacking some detail, because my goal also as part of this meeting was to gain some guidance on exactly what the board and Mr. Hahn was looking for, which I did read the memo, so I have definitely some better guidance on the technical information that would be required to legalize this. And now that I have that guidance, I'm prepared to go back and address some of those concerns that were raised in the memo. The existing retaining walls that were on site were stone in not so good condition. Most of them actually was in very bad condition and despair. Looked like they were about to collapse. They were replaced with Cambridge style segmented retaining walls. Here are some photos that I provided in the report. I hope you got a chance to take a look at that. The wall, I did do a test pit. I had the owner do a test pit in the field to confirm that it was built properly. It did appear that it was built according to manufacturer specifications based off of the test pit that we did. There are no pictures of the actual construction of the retaining wall, which is why I asked him to do the test pit. The walls were pre-existing and built in kind for the most part. If you look at this survey from 2018, 2019, here it is, brought to date in 2018, 2019. There is a low stone wall that was located on the property, on the right side of the property here. That's the west side of the property. And then there's also remains of a stone retaining wall, just loose stones along the rear property line. The owner rebuilt this wall in kind, and using the existing stones, rebuilt these retaining walls along the property lines. At this point, I guess I would just like to hear some feedback from the board and go from there.
In the application, you had a photograph of that wall back there by the stream.
Yes, I'll put that up. Sure.
The stream is on the other side of that back wall.
That's correct. So it's back in the high grass area back here. Same thing on this side.
The photo
Right.
on the left has some roots exposed, and the photo on the right doesn't. So some fill was put in there. There's a lot of fill going there.
No, there was actually no fill brought in, and we're actually looking at the neighbor's property here. According to the owner, and I'll have him speak on this because he is here. There was no fill brought onto the site. We can look at GIS contours in comparison to maybe current contours to prove that, but doesn't seem like it when you're out there, and maybe it's just the visual in the picture, but I'll let Mr. Connick speak on that if you'd like to hear from
No,
him direct.
I think the big issue is
Okay.
you said it right from the get-go, that you're in the floodplain and your site plan doesn't show the floodplain. And you
Right.
might be diminishing the floodplain, which is a problem. And Ed, you want to go over that?
Yeah, I think it would be best if you can send Doug and I some dates tomorrow for next week, and we meet out in the field and we'll dig one test hole or two test holes in that back area to see if there's any fill there. And we can just,
Okay.
instead of trying to do the GIS mapping and all that other stuff, it's just arbitrary. You dig a quick hole there, you'll know if it's fill or not. All right, and
Right.
then we can also discuss any loose items you may have or questions you have with the application.
That'd be great.
The
That'd be
biggest
great.
problem we have is documenting that there's no impact to the floodplain and proving that we didn't diminish floodplain. So you can spend most of your time focusing on that. And like I
Okay.
said, send me some dates, Doug and I some dates, and we really want to get out there as soon as possible and dig those holes to move it along.
Great. Thank you for that.
We've had several floodplain applications lately, and it's a considerable issue. The state DEC does look over the shoulder of municipalities to check on floodplain management. And we certainly wouldn't want to be responsible. This board doesn't want to be responsible for a village problem with DEC on mismanaging a floodplain. So you could
I
start with,
understand.
you could start with putting the floodplain. Do we have access to floodplain maps?
Yeah, they're available
I
online.
do.
He knows where to go.
Yeah.
Take a quick look at our wetlands map too.
And the issue is, did you take a bite out of the floodplain? And if it did, there's gonna have to be some remedial work. So if
Understood.
floodplain is behind that wall and it's cut off, that section is cut off, you may have to put some flow through access underneath that wall so that the floodplain continues to be a floodplain.
Yeah, I mean, it
It's-
is sitting on 12 inches of gravel, that wall back there, but I guess like Mr. Marin said, when we get out there, we can dig some holes and,
We'll get out there. Let's just
and,
move it. Move it
Yeah.
along, meaning we'll get the right answers right away, and then we'll deal with it.
right. Right.
What about the neighbor? He said that where the roots were and are now covered, that's the neighbor's property.
Like I said, if there's fill on the neighbor's property, it's the same issue if there's fill on his property.
So we'll have to look into that as well. Okay, if the floodplain map, don't end it at your property line, just plop it on the site plan. So we can see where it
Okay.
runs to.
No problem.
Okay,
I
You have
actually
any-
have it in, I have it in.
I'm sorry.
I don't have any additional questions. No, I don't have any additional questions, but this is the flood line here in relationship to,
Yeah.
to the property. So it's.
What's going on with the shed?
The shed, we would like to legalize it.
In a floodplain?
So if possible, yeah, I mean, we're not reducing any flood storage volume. It's literally just storing like rakes and
Yeah,
shovels.
we'll talk in the field on that. You have to do
Okay.
more than just. Yeah. you'd
All
have
right,
to-
yeah, I mean, definitely want
How-
to discuss it.
I
And
don't understand how that would happen. You plop a shed in the middle of a floodplain you're taking that square footage out of this floodplain
He could put, it's not habitable if he puts floodgates in it.
if he puts floodgates. in.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm sure if it's an existing shed, it doesn't have it.
It's actually a new shed.
Oh,
It's like it's a shed from Home Depot, like $250 that you put together yourself.
Our
It's not
favorite
airtight. It's not stick built. It's
Yeah,
it
no,
can float.
and
The water
actually,
can
that
float
might
through it.
create the problem. I mean, we also have to make sure it's secure, it doesn't move in a flood situation, and it fills up and empties
Right.
easily.
Right.
float away.
So we can talk about that and
Questions
decide
on the board?
what the best route is.
No questions.
I have no questions.
Sarah,
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
okay, thank you very much. I think you have your
Thank you.
homework to set up a meeting in the site. And that usually fixes things one way or the other, as to how real or not. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your time. All right. Good night.
Good night. Now that finishes the agenda. And any other comment on anything? Ed,
No, we're good.
Doug, we're okay?
I think so.
All right, it's 9:19. The meeting is declared closed. The planning board meeting of January 3rd is closed. Thank you very much.